Oh.
All right. I got to see the people roll in though.
I know.
That's
I'm
what
trying
it's,
to.
it's such a usual thing. I mean, when you lead these, you're just like, hey, which speaking of, hey, everybody, welcome, coming on board here. Good to see y'all.
I'm glad somebody else says y'all.
I'm not even going to attempt it.
I don't hear many. You can tell who's from Mississippi or the South that works at Next Gear pretty immediately based on their, hey, y'all.
Exactly. It's hard not to. And so, growing up in Maine, originally, but from a Southern household, my mom, from Mississippi. So I was brought up, my older sister, actually, when she was a little kid, she said, I speak Southern. And yeah, so we grew up learning how to speak Southern. So, coming down here, it's just, natural, I guess. But,
it's so funny how different it really is once you get out there. There's never a time I travel out of the South that I don't have at least 5 people stop me and go, oh my gosh, make a comment about how strong my accent is. And I'm like, good grief. So funny how we don't hear ourselves,
Oh, yeah. It's true. It's true. I love it. I called up my mother one time because my son, now he's starting to talk, 2 years old. He's adding some syllables to things. And I know she was really proud, he's a tail instead of a tail. It's, stuff like that.
Like, that.
Kitty tail.
You need to tape that. We need to hear that.
Oh, for sure.
I love it.
Yeah, and then my uncle, he's a local attorney here, and he was a lot of times when he goes, a federal attorney, when they do their sessions, people really will call out and they're like, look, man, like you're in federal court now, yeah, you may want to work on the whole fixing and stuff every now and then. Welcome everybody, seeing everyone roll in. Hey, talking about it, anybody else say y'all, even if you're not from the South. We're going to get to where everyone is, but feel free to pop up and chat if you utilize y'all, or if you don't. I think there are some yins there in the America, and I'm from America too, but hey, all right. Yes. Hey, welcome, Dianna. What's up? Welcome. Good to see you. I love it. I love it. Y'all representation all the way in Hawaii.
I'd like to go to Hawaii.
Nice to
I
see
haven't
you.
done that yet. That's on my bucket list.
I say this every time when we start seeing where people, are, which I know we'll see that in just a bit. It just makes my bucket list gets longer every one of these webinars, because somebody lives somewhere that I'm like, oh, I haven't thought of that yet. So my list just gets longer and longer.
Somebody mute that guy.
Mr. David. David. And
that's
right. That is a buck. Hey, and so we got some y'all from Canada there, and I love it. This is good. So, hey guys, awesome. Welcome,
don't tell
everybody.
us where you're from yet. Don't tell us where you're from yet.
Oh, that's all right. Thanks, Ms. Didi. And hey, we I'm sure our talking on occasion has certainly not been is not complete. So we have plenty more follow-ups for sure. So definitely, I think the way these are structured too, with the microphones and such. But thank you for the consideration with the background noise too.
Yes. So, and just a note for those coming in, we will have the chat on right now. But then as soon as John and Dianna start the content, we're going to turn that chat off so that you can submit questions through Q&A that might be relevant to the content, but so we don't stay distracted with the chat. We're going to cut that off.
Exactly. Hey, it was like 2020. How many of y'all have been in, Teams meetings as a company, and, people are talking away at their meeting appointments that they're addressing, yet all of a sudden the chat just tick, 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 people talking about their beer or anything like that.
Yeah,
that happened to me and distracted me.
Exactly.
Not fun. That's when you lose your train of thought.
That's it. And as y'all get to know us, I mean, I've already spoken with many of you guys, but Dianna and I we have a lot of fun, and we kind of we get on rabbit trails every now and then. So we're gonna have fun this session, but Yeah, it's quick for us to kind of start going. So if we see that tick 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 tick, we're done.
Yes. You forget what you're talking about. That's okay.
That's
See,
it.
and there's my Canadian accent coming in. About.
Yeah, I hear it for sure.
Going out.
So we'll give about 3 more minutes and let people continue to come in. For everybody on the call, y'all are a part of the very first audience of Dianna and John leading this finance and accounting track. So you're in for a big treat today. Obviously not their first time to share, but their first time with Connect Pulse. So we're super excited that they're going to share with us today.
Exactly. The inaugural launch. Thank you, guys.
No pressure.
I was fixing to say, no pressure, no pressure.
Exactly.
All right. Looks like we're going to have a good group.
I'm thinking so too. And we're rolling on in. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Recognizing some names here. Welcome, everybody.
I'm not looking at the names because I know a bunch of people that are supposed to be joining. So I'm not even going to let that get in.
You'd rather not know.
I'd rather not know. No, Dave, no.
Yes, you should.
Can we turn off
Hey, Miss Lori.
specific chat?
Do I need to go on here and boot him out? I actually can do that.
No.
We'll let him stay. I love it. So is his office directly beside yours? Like, can he
No,
hear
there's
you?
a bathroom between us.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully he doesn't get up and just walk over. My door is shut. But
well, he just heard your message.
I don't have a lock.
Surely.
I know. Hint, hint. The door is shut. I don't have a door. I can't, or like a chair to block it.
I love it. I love it.
Oh.
For those of you wondering the context, there's a family member on the other side of the door joining us from the chat. So of Dianna here. So
yeah, it's just
a lot of
me
fun.
on.
A good cheering section there.
Bantering back and forth.
That's it. That's it. Hey, at least you got, that's a good one. If anything, I've got like one of those, I've got my 2-year-old, and if he runs in, it's going to be like one of those bloopers you see on the news where they're doing the telecast from their office and the kid runs in.
You know what? That would break the ice. It's all good.
That's it.
You go ahead. You can just bring him in.
That's it. Exactly. Awesome.
Oh, thank you.
So sweet.
We're getting close to pumpkin hour, folks. We're going to get started here in a second.
1 minute.
Yeah, 1 minute to launch here. So feel free.
Control.
Yes, you did. Feel free, grab anything to drink, anything like that if you want. We'll get started here. We're going to be settling into a nice 1.5-hour flight. So. And then, of course, to keep us from, hey, Mickey, awesome. Welcome. All right. So perfect. So I think 1 o'clock, if everyone else is ready, people are probably going to be rolling on in, but we always have it recorded. So if you miss anything, of course, you'll be able to see the recording. We're going to mention that later on anyway, too. And we'll flip off. Speaking of fun distractions on top of chat, Miss Dianna and I are going to be flipping off our camera as well. So sorry, these mugs here. You will be just hearing our soothing voices, but that's for effect. So we'll get into that here. So I'd say if you're all right with it, let's go ahead and get started, guys.
Let's do it.
All right, video off. All right, so. Hey, so welcome everyone to our session here. This is our Mad Dash to 2022 Pulse Connect. As you guys know, you guys are all joining us here. This is the finance and accounting track that we're going over today, also known as the Dianna and John show to our coworkers. So, hey, our goal here today, speaking of Dianna and John show, is really to kind of get you guys going in more of a podcast style. So we're going to kind of step it back because, we're talking about finance and accounting, which can sometimes be a little bit dry. And we don't want to do that. We want to make this a lot more fun, conversational, interactive. So really our idea is to get you guys thinking out of the box today. Really, that's the kind of our main goal here. So we get so locked into some patterns that we fail to like look back at those things and just move on and let our old ways pile up as far as how we're operating, what we're doing, things we're keeping track of. So our thought is to kind of poke your brain a little bit and get you guys thinking from a different perspective as we're leading into 2022, so that you can help either initiate a charge within your company or whatnot, and to start the conversations to really get you guys positioned for success this year. So our agenda today here is ultimately, if we can pop this up on my slideshow, there we go. Of course, we're going to do our introductions as we move right along through. And we're going to start by kind of setting our basis, our pulse line here for cash flow forecasting. So we're going to get you guys going in that respect, because really this is a holistic way of really getting you guys starting to round out your expectations for your year as well, especially obviously. And ultimately in doing that, that's going to lead us into obviously the conversations that we're having to build and review our chart of accounts, build and or review, I should say. Then part of it as well is starting to prepare your documentation and procedures. There are things with this, and yes, sometimes you may be looking at this like, hold on, finance, I'm looking at numbers. Well, you know, this actually touches a lot more than you may think. We sat there and we looked at each other and we're like, how can we not address this? So you guys will see as we go. And then we're also going to kind of land the plane to a certain degree on the importance of compiling good data. As we go along here today, you guys will see us almost show kind of examples to a certain degree of good data. Obviously, right? It's things you can do with the data as you're moving it, especially if you're recording it into something like Dash, all that fun stuff. So this is kind of the vision cast section to show you guys, you know, things that you can look out for, first off, and also just mainly showing you the value of why we want to pitch what we pitch here, and for you guys to help with your team, you know, get positioned right there. And then of course we got a question and answer section at the end, though as we go along, we have, as you guys see, the question and answer section. Even though the chat will be turned off, the question and answer section will remain. And so we will have the ability, if you can set it through the Q&A part of your Zoom meeting as well. We'll try our best to answer questions as we go if it fits. As we were joking about earlier, Dianna and I are kind of, you know, we can go off on tangents at sometimes. We're, you know, I'll admit on my part, a nerd about things. So we will have fun, a little too much fun sometimes, questioning the answers. So if ultimately, you know, basically your voice is going to be heard at the end. If we don't answer it at first, we'll answer it at the end. Long story short. So let's go ahead and introduce ourselves here. And so I am John Harrison here, the man speaking there. That's a photo from a little while ago, but hey, beard still stays the same. Now, I'm one of the coaches here at Next Gear. I'm kind of one of the accounting specialists. That's kind of one of my areas of, you know, specialization here. So you guys would probably, I mean, I recognize a whole bunch of faces. So, you know, I have joined here back in December of 2017. I came from a background, well, this is actually technically my first white collar job here with Next Gear. Before then, I was pretty much doing full on in the construction world, you know, and took my business degree information, you know, my background in accounting through college, and took that into, well, the construction universe, and had a lot of fun with that. Decided to fly a desk for a bit, and here I am. So by the way, and I know Dianna would probably say this as well, if you're a screenshotter, go ahead and take a screenshot of this info. Here's our contact info. You've got it ready. If you need follow-ups, we will of course let you know that at the end as well. But feel free. And with that, Dianna, take it away. How about yourself?
This is great. Actually, this is the first time that I have had the ability to do like a webinar such as this. I am fairly new to Next Gear. I started in June of this year, but prior to that, my husband and I actually owned our own restoration company. So I've been in the industry since 2009, and I'm pretty excited to be a part of Next Gear, and actually to be able to help John host this webinar. And my background, like I said, we've had our business. We had 2 locations. I helped to manage both those locations. I also took care of a lot of the HR work and, of course, the accounting. So between John and I, we should be able to help you guys with any of the questions you may have. And then, of course, before that, I actually used to sell insurance. So I do have a bit of an insurance background as well. And we'll kind of get into a little bit of that as we're going through, because there's some areas that we just want to reiterate to you to get you thinking about it. But the last thing I wanted to share is that I am Canadian. So I am hoping that there are a ton of other Canadians on here as well, which will lead us into our first poll.
Indeed, indeed. So we are utilizing this really cool thing called Slido. This is not a paid advertisement for Slido. You guys feel free, if you want to scan that code, that will take you to the spot where you can actually participate. And feel free, join in, submit your answers. So grab your phone or anything like that, snap that QR code, drop in, and let us know where you guys are joining us from. That way we can kind of get an idea. I know some of folks, just by relationship, we already know where some of y'all are, but let's go ahead. You guys might be surprised if someone else is in your area too. So nice. We got stuff popping in all over.
Love this.
Oh, this is great.
Oh, we got Vernon.
Oh, awesome. Let's see. So lots from Wisconsin and Austin. Okay. So that's the cool thing about this Slido thing. So if we got a lot of people coming in at once from one spot, it gets bigger. So
I don't know about you, but I'm having a hard time following it. It moves so quickly.
I know, it's a lot of fun. This is really fun watching it in real life. So awesome, guys. We got people from all over the place, and we do have, looks like, look at that. We got some Canadians coming in too.
We do.
So good, and we've got some folks representing as well all across the U.S. So I don't see anyone from Maine yet, but hey, that's all right. You know, my home state, it's kind of hard anyway. People don't even know if we have running water. There you go, Massachusetts. So all right. So awesome. Well, for the sake of time, we'll keep rolling along as you guys get the idea from Slido as well. We got another question here. So let's get an idea of, who all we have on the call. What, my friends, is your role within your company? Who are we, really looking through? Are we dealing with more accounting bookkeepers, some owners here? It looks like we got some, good bit of others as well. So awesome.
Oh, this is good.
Yeah, this is great. I love it, guys. So we got a lot from the accounting and bookkeeping side of things, that we do have some other folks in the office / owners and operations managers as well. So perfect. Well, good. Looks like we're getting some pretty solid representation here. I love to see that. Leaving that on for a couple more seconds, just so everyone knows they have a chance to vote and get their voice heard. And let's go ahead now. And now that we got an idea, some shared, experiences here, let's go ahead and launch into our first section for the day. So cash flow forecasting. We're going to go ahead and kind of set the scene here, because obviously at times, the longer I am in somewhat of a professional realm here, I realize that we can often use terms differently, even in schooling, let's face it. So at the end of the day, we want to kind of set you guys our idea of what is cash flow. We're going to get into that. But the big thing is, what we want you to start off is, when we think about cash flow, when we think about kind of forecasting, setting things up, your brain might feel like this image. It might feel a little bit convoluted, jumbled up, things like that. It might get intimidating, quite frankly, because if you're a thinker kind of like me, where all of a sudden one little thing inflates to every little thing you have to keep track of, that might get intimidating, especially positioning your business. So what we want to do is we want to start kind of breaking down and giving you guys some thought points here. So let's go ahead. Let's roll into it now, and let's start defining our cash flow. So Dianna, when you hear cash flow, what really are you thinking of here?
Of course, money. Right? Really, it's about money and how much money we have. Of course, the faster it comes into the business, the faster it goes right back out. But the goal behind what we're trying to do today is really get you guys thinking about forecasting for that future, and what your goals are for building your business. Whether you're new in the industry or whether you've been around for years, it is an ongoing review that you're going to do with your business. So that's where it kind of leads into our living document, right? Everything that we do is considered a living document within this industry. I mean, at any point, if you are making changes with your business, you're going to update that information. So we just want to make sure that we kind of tap into this and really get your brains kind of thinking about the areas that you could help to invest in your business and make it bigger, make it better.
Exactly. And that's the whole concept. And we'll be circling back to this a bunch of times. I mean, that's that old thing in business schools, they'll often tell you is essentially, you know, if you're not growing forward, if you're not moving, there really is no such thing as being stagnant as a company. And so being willing to look back, to adjust, to do things like that, because you may be missing out on something that is a game changer for your company here. So let's go ahead. We've got this kind of defined and outlined. So let's really dig in. This is where we're going to start doing essentially basically a brainstorming session for you guys. So this is where you're going to start really thinking, ultimately building out as we go, as we start putting pen to paper. But really, let's set our goals and identify our drivers as a company. This is how it's all going to lump in. So, I mean, how do you forecast, like, you know, Dianna,
right?
what are you thinking?
You need to sit down and you need to figure out what it is that you want your business to achieve, right? So let's talk about our number of new contracts yearly. You know, are you interested in doing program work, or do you simply just want to do one-off work as it comes in, do things individually with homeowners? You know, if you want program work, how are you going to make that happen? Who do you need to reach out to and talk to about that? You know, on top of that, okay, so if we don't want to do contract work and we want to talk about different other groups that are out there that we potentially could market to, what does that look like? And I know, John, you and I talked about this a few times. You know, we've obviously talked about HOAs. We've talked about retirement homes. What other areas do you see that's beneficial to people to reach out to?
You know, I think, you know, you're right. When you're, you know, talking that, I think, you know, various commercial accounts, I mean, that is a fun one. And especially depending on if you start to, and we'll get into how we can measure the profitability of certain commercial accounts. But various, you know, commercial accounts and or property management companies in general. You know, if we're talking that, there's always your mom and pop, honestly, property management companies that you could be overlooking in your area. Believe it or not, you can get creative with these. It's not the massive ones too, although those are perfectly fine. Really sit down and think how you can get your relationship in with these people and really kind of get that in place.
Yeah. That gives you your future, you know, yearly goals. How can we grow that business a little bit bigger? And they do require creating these relationships, right? So then going into our number of jobs monthly, you know, how does that look? What services are you going to provide? You know, do you know what your break even is going to be, right? If you know, okay, I'm going to do water mitigation, what does that look like for your company? What kind of equipment do you need to have? What kind of staff do you need to have? Certifications? You know, just reminding yourself, what do I need to have if I want to grow into another area? Other ideas, you know, making sure you have cash on hand and identifying which of those months may be tighter than others, right? John, I know that we also talked a little bit more about being prepared. What could that look like?
Yeah, I mean, we've got different options here when it comes to being prepared. You guys can really think about this, even if you got to break out by months. If you think about it, if you're doing your brainstorming session, kind of getting these ideas, these drivers down here, you know, we've got a couple different options to look at this. If you're being prepared, one, you can be on the defensive end right in here. So let's say, you know, the obvious go-to, whether we're talking personal finance, quite frankly, or business, having those 3-6 months worth of expenses set up in a, you know, emergency fund. Like,
That's
you know, if I think about it, defensive, I'm gonna do that for sure. But let's consider offensive. And this is what Dianna and I were having a lot of fun talking about. We were sitting there talking shop, comparing notes for a while there. You know, are there opportunities related to slower seasons that you could take advantage of? I know Dianna and I had one in particular that we both actually did back in the day. And so I'll let her speak to that one. But with us too, one thing that we did was snow removal. And so, especially from, you know, a side like winter back in Maine, you know, big thing, right? If maybe you're not prepared or positioned or want to take your folks out fully for your general, you know, plowing and snow blowing and all that kind of stuff for regular contracts, maybe you jump up and offer roof clearing services, because if you do that, there you go. You're already positioned right there out in the open for any kind of ice dam contracts, quite frankly. So, you know, you're right there out in the open. So now we had a lot of fun with this one. So what was yours?
Well, it leads into a home inspection. So in Canada, when you have, well, let's just start. A lot of Canadians like to go steps, right? So we have a lot of snowbirds that will leave, and they leave their homes for upwards to 6 months. Well, depending on the insurance company you are actually registered with, you actually have to make sure that you have somebody monitoring your house. Now, each company is different. I actually pulled my information because I was really curious. And I think we're with Economical. And for them, it's actually 14 consecutive days that we're allowed to be out of the house without actually having someone monitor our house. Now, that doesn't seem like that seems a considerable amount of time to me, because I know I've also seen 48 hours and 7 days. Like, it just depends. So it is something that you're going to want to look into. But I did think it's a great idea in the sense that if you did offer home inspections and, it was a bit slower, so you're keeping your staff members employed, you send them to these homes, and if something did in fact happen, you're already on site, right? You can call your team and say, hey, look, here's our situation. And not to mention, you already have a contract in place with your homeowner. So it just gets you thinking about this a little bit more and how you can utilize, your assets that you have within your company already. And your people are important. So how can we make it work for them a little bit easier? But, that kind of also leads into other things, such as, equipment. If you've got equipment that's sitting around, you're not always using it. What can you do with your equipment other than, say, an emergency, whether you're attending a water loss, whatever? I mean, let's talk about air scrubbers, for instance. We had a situation, and where we were, because we were in BC before, we're now in Ontario, but in BC, every year you end up with fires. And so we actually had a retirement home that we had like a verbal contract with them, but every year, whenever the fire season was starting, they would call us up and we would bring in our air scrubbers. And those air scrubbers would run from the time the fire started to basically into the fall session, just to, obviously keep their residents comfortable and make it better for them. What a great way to keep your equipment moving and making you money when you're not actually, maybe you don't have to do anything other than sending your staff by to kind of check on it and make sure everything's okay, change out any filters. But it's just something else to think about, right? I mean, that's the whole point behind this webinar, is to get you guys opening your mind and thinking about other options.
Exactly. So that's that kind of, like, if you think about it, almost kind of opportunity cost style, like, what's that downtime costing you? Think about that and really kind of come at that from that financial end if you have to. From here, but that is some of those offensive ways we can really think, especially if we do any sort of slow months. Another thing actually that I thought that we used to do, because we removed lumber, we had a staging area at the shop for lumber. We had this weird dead season right in the middle of the summer, and it was perfect timing. We actually trimmed up the lumber and sold it for firewood. Now this actually though leads to a thought though that you had, Dianna, insurance wise. If we're doing these services, what we got?
So you need to make sure, and this does happen to you, you do need to have a conversation with your broker or your agent, whoever it is that's selling your policy for your commercial liability. So that's your CGL. You need to make sure that you actually have the correct insurance in place to be doing the different types of services that you're providing. So, a couple of years ago, we had a situation where we had a very large windstorm that had come through our valley and took down hundreds and hundreds of trees. I know at one point, there was, I think, over 200 trees on the golf course alone. So you can kind of imagine how many trees were coming down on houses, let alone vehicles and everything else. But one thing that we realized very quickly, because we actually had a really good relationship with our broker, he reached out to us and said, hey, we don't actually have anything on your policy to cover you for this. Do we need to put that in place? Now, I'm going to tell you, a lot of brokers don't do that kind of stuff. So if you don't have that relationship, reach out to your broker, ask them questions. And, see, not only is it important to ask them questions about your own policy, but also it's that building that relationship with them to see what other kind of, work you can get from them as well. But it's something to think about. It's really important to make sure you've got the right insurance in place for your company.
Exactly. And if anything, you heard it from us. And hey, if you're going on the offensive and you want to plan on that, if we're forecasting, think of how you want to position yourself financially to get that kind of coverage, to do that kind of work, whatever we need to do. So now, here's the fun one. And I like to kind of point out a bit of an elephant in the room for 2020, or 2021, if anyone's been paying attention to headlines: employees. What are we talking? When we're trying to find reliable employees, honest subcontractors, things like that, what are your practices here?
I think the biggest thing right now is just invest in the people that you do have, and use them also to help you bring in some new staff. You really need to, when I say invest, take the time to teach these guys, right? Give them a reason and a value to be with your business. How is it important? Well, you can train your staff members, send them to certification courses if they're interested, help them grow. I can't say it enough. It's so important to value your team members and keep them on board, that, you can do even simple things too, not just in regards to training and giving them more opportunities to grow, but even fun stuff. I mean, we used to take our staff on, we would do staff days, usually about twice a year. And I remember one of the last ones we did, we went to a lockout room. And that was super fun. When you bring two groups of people from two different offices together and mash them, and then split them up into different groups and lock them in a room and hope they can figure out how to get out. What a great team building event. So it's just things you need to think about. How can we keep our staff members, because they are really what help grow our business. And this is, I think, one important area that you can do that. Make them valuable.
That's it, and again, be thinking about that kind of stuff, be trying to position yourself for that, because it does. Like we had our, just a local trade show. We were our core guys. We would treat our crew leads to just a local trade show. That was enough. The guys felt special. We all did. Like I myself, and it's just a little thing, but how much does that cost versus how much to sit there and try to train somebody else up who has that invested knowledge in your company, because there's downtime with that. So, and that gets expensive, as we all know, when we're talking labor. So speaking of, though, outside of the company, I know this was a very big heartbeat for you, Dianna, but subs, what are we
contractors. So we're not going to go too far into this one, because we actually have a slide later on that's going to talk more about it. But, making sure that you do, once you find those reliable and honest subcontractors, making sure that you have the necessary documentation for them, right? And you want to be transparent back and forth. What can they do for you, and what can you do for them? So we're going to talk, like I said, a little bit more about that a bit further along. But I mean, simple things like your workers' compensation, liability insurance, getting a business or contractor's license from them, that kind of stuff. So there's a little taste.
Be thinking about those 1099s. So let's go ahead now, and we're going to move into, now we're going to start to kind of put, again, a little more at this point. We're going from a little more conceptual, theoretical, to now let's start to put a little bit more pen to paper here. So let's walk through kind of those steps. So first thing, of course, is our plan. That's kind of part of our deal. Like what we're starting out with, the stuff that we've been spitballing back and forth here, the who will do the work, who we got, we're with our employees, things like that, subs, what services are we doing? Did you guys think about anything else outside the box with your equipment or those offensive elements for slow times? Where is it coming from? What other things are you thinking of when we're building our plan here?
Well, if you only have one location, but you have that goal that eventually you want to grow to another location, what does that look like, right? If you want to expand, how do you do that? Do you need more equipment? Are you going to have to hire more team members? How is that plan going to affect your cash flow? Do you need to think about financing in the future, and what does that look like? So again, it's just thinking about the different areas with your business and how it can work for you. But you do have to do this regularly, right? That's where your living document comes into play, because, and I'm not suggesting this is like a daily thing, but at least once a year, review your plan. And especially now is the time to be doing it before you get into your new year and you have ideas of where you're going to be, which leads you into your budget, right? What are those costs going to be for that plan? What are your forecasted sales and potential expenses going to be? So again, thinking about that, if you've got the ideas, we've already talked about it. What sort of services are you going to provide? What kind of growth do you want? What do those numbers look like? And then come down to your goals and plan it for the future. So what does a year from now look like once you've done that? What does 2 years, 3 years, 10 years down the road? Have you figured out an organizational chart? Do you know visually what that's going to look like for your team? And coming up with those ideas, that really helps to lead into other areas. So let's also talk about risk.
Exactly. I mean, because once we get into this point, and don't be afraid when you're getting into these with like these goals, these things like that, because again, living document, we're always going to be revisiting this anyway. And same thing comes with the risk. what are we dealing? Do we have that backup plan for those slower months? Did we figure that out? What's the risk? Like if I do this service, could potentially there be a time where business will slow down for a period of time?
Sure.
And do I have a plan for that? What does that mean for that? Again, are we going offensive and trying to find something else a little outside the box, or are we kind of maybe using that time for what we used to call quote unquote shop time, getting all the other stuff that sometimes you don't get done around the local shop there, and then just keeping the cash reserve and paying your folks out from more so maybe even like a bit of a reserve on either the cash itself or line of credit. How are you guys looking for something like that? And two, again, as far as goals go, we're talking goals and budget. If you are wanting that new employee, let's maybe consider, if possible, because I love this strategy, setting up 6 months of wages at the very least for that new hire. Exactly. That way, if things get tough, hey, you still got them. Hang tight with me. I got you employed. Let's make it so we can actually jump into this next spot here.
That's right. So now we lead into implementing it, right? I mean, you've already come up with your plan and your budget and your goals and figured out what your risk is. Now you just have to take that information that you've learned and let's make it happen. Pretty simple, I think, at this point. Move forward with that growth, right? And then obviously review regularly. That living document comes back into play once again. Make sure that you have checked your information. And it's okay, you can change. You don't have to stay on one straight line and there might be bumps in the road. You can change or alter your direction based on what it is you want to do, how you want to grow your business. It's not set in stone at this point, but I think really importantly, we should point out too that everything that we're talking about today, again, it's just getting you thinking about it. But if you have questions, you're not alone, right? Reach out to a financial planner or whoever your accountant may be. If you're not sure about something or you have some questions, that's what they're there for. Take advantage of those connections and see what you can do to grow your business by using their services as well, right?
Yeah, or your broker. By the way, keep that as well. So never hesitate, get those relationships going, talk freely, and especially with someone who you trust. And this may be preaching to the choir anyway, but someone who you can trust, who can sit there and stare you plainly in the face and say, you know what, I don't think that's the best time for this right now. Let's go ahead and position yourself this way, expense this out instead, not this. So we had that and it came into great value at times. So let's go ahead with this in mind. We have some more polls for you guys as we go along. So starting to think, what are you guys doing as far as your services? Who on this call are you guys mitigation only, full services? This is where you start to think, because many times we talk to folks that are, only doing repair work or anything like that, but they kind of want to get into mitigation. Well, how are you positioning? Some people are only doing mitigation, they want to get into repair.
Same thing with contents, right? I mean, content is a big area to get into, and what does that look like? So
exactly. We got a lot of folks looking like it's in the lead for full services. Cool. All right. We got a lot of folks on contents on the job too, so that's pretty cool too. So nice, and some cleaning folks as well. So sweet. So as you start thinking, maybe even honestly, general quick, easy list, if you're looking at this, maybe think of what you might hope to get into as well as we're looking through. So
that's that
plenty of opportunities. Exactly. So awesome. Well, hey, we're going to get this rolling up for, again, the sake of time. Thank you all for voting on this one. Let's think about another element too. We're starting to think about our services. Let's think about our downtime. You guys have a downtime? When technically, if you did, some folks might not have a downtime.
We didn't have a downtime. It was crazy.
There we go. Lots of folks on that no downtime
good,
as well.
But bad, right?
Exactly. Hey, and we got lots of folks in winter too. So hey, if you're in an area that snows a little bit, you may want to think about that snow removal. Oh yeah, fall.
Ice damming is big.
Yeah, it is. So lots of folks though on the and not as much for summer. That's interesting. So that's good.
Not too many summer storms, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. So. Well, awesome. Well, cool. So this is, again, just starting to, poke your brain again, think about it, like really think, even if it's even, a few weeks, like I said, our dead summer downtime, it got awkward for about maybe 3 weeks to a month. And so once we jumped in and did our lumber days, it smoothed things out perfectly. So exactly. So just kind of keeps the lights on. So now, if you guys have been enjoying us poking at your brain in these kind of areas, when we're talking about, whether or not you're marketing to another element as far as stepping into carrier programs, or ultimately, positioning yourself in a different method as far as getting out in those relationships, we do have other webinars for you. Some have passed. However, we do have a recording.
Don't worry if you can't make them all. We will be taping them. So.
Exactly. They're all being taped. So we're good to go here. So and of course, register if you need to. There is still time for some of them. So
yes, I think it's up to 30 minutes before. So
yeah, so take your time. So now let's go ahead, and we just wanted to let you guys know that just in case while we were on those thoughts, because now we're going to start transitioning. We're going to get a little bit more pen to paper again as we start talking about our chart of accounts. So let's go ahead and start in on our chart of accounts. Dianna, take it away.
So we're not going to talk about the whole thing with our chart of accounts because everybody knows it's quite big. There's a lot of information that you can capture, but ideally what we want to talk about right now are 3 key areas, and that's your revenue accounts, your cost of goods sold, and your expenses. Now, we're going to start on revenue, and the way that we did it with our organization, because we had 2 locations, we actually broke out our services or our divisions through our revenue accounts. So I know some people use classes to do that, but because we had 2 locations, we actually used classes to identify our locations. But then in our revenue accounts, we broke things out. So some companies, you may not want to do this, and it's completely up to you, but it depends on how you want to capture that information. And for us, we had water myths separated. We had our reconstruction, our contents, hazardous materials, cleaning, like all of that we had individually broke out so that later on we could actually review it and pull a report and go, okay, what's working for us and what isn't. So it was just valuable information when we were creating our chart of accounts. And I know if some of you guys are new, you may have and depending on the program that you're using, we used QuickBooks. So when we first went into it, initially, we just said, okay, here's the type of company we are, and it gave us a set chart of accounts. And that's fine, but you do want to be able to review it and go, okay, what do I need to be able to capture so that I know what my future is going to be? And this could change throughout as well, because again, like John, we talked about this before, differentiating between residential and commercial. So if there are particular areas that, say, for commercial that you really want to track a bit more of, now is a great way to be able to update that chart of accounts and identify it for that. We could talk a little bit more about, let me see here, cost of goods. So let's go right into our COGS. And a good practice to break out for us, again, and I'm going to use myself as an example because obviously that's what we know, but we broke all of our subcontractors out. So we would have a main header count that would obviously say subcontractors, and then beneath that we would have sub accounts that would identify our drywallers, our painters, our flooring companies, and plumbers and roofers, and whoever else you want to do. But let me tell you a little tip about this when it comes to insurance. Every year, at least for us in Canada, when we received our renewal for our CGL policy, they would give me a document that I would have to complete that would identify how much money we had paid out for each of these different subcontractors. And the first couple of years was kind of difficult. I would actually have to pull paperwork and pull different reports and, here's one company and here's another company that does the same thing and calculate everything. And honestly, it's a pain. Like, you really don't have a whole lot of time to do that. So I altered our chart of accounts to reflect the different service companies that we were hiring to come in and do this work. So then all I had to do was pull a quick P&L and my numbers were there. And then I could just transfer them onto that document and away we go. It would take me maybe 5 minutes and I'd be done. It's really important, if that's the direction you want to go, that you identify that stuff. Again, you just have to think, what is it you want to capture and how can I make that happen? So just ideas, right? You can do the same thing with your material costs. You could break it down for your in-house labor, as well as things like referral fees and temporary help, right? So just give you some ideas. Exactly. Let's talk about expenses. I talk too much, so I'll take control. I don't want to take control. You got to help me out here.
No, I talk too much too. We go back and forth at this one. So hey, so our expenses, and this is again, you guys start thinking about again, maybe you have to revisit this. Quite honestly, again, chart of accounts is another big thing where, especially as we start to build it out, again, living document, revisit. What have we added that we may want to report on that we haven't positioned ourselves? So same concept with our everyday expenses. If you want to break that out, do you want to separate your business insurance stuff? Are we working through that? Are we dealing with, separating out our expenses for vehicle insurance, things like that, or CGL? All of that info. Can we break that out? And again, using in our opinions, our both of us sub accounts and stuff like that, because I take a deep breath when I see someone organized with sub accounts. I love it. Oh, it's fantastic. And so, in that same idea, again, breaking it out if we want to. What about your sales and marketing? Are you talking?
Yeah, you can certainly do that, because, the easier part, if you break these out, now you can actually, again, pull those reports, right? I mean, we all love reports. We're in accounting. What does that look like? What's working for you and what isn't? So if you have, let's use Yellow Pages, for example, maybe that doesn't necessarily work for you, but you want to keep a little bit of a presence. So let's reallocate some of that money to another area that actually is working. But again, you wouldn't know that if you didn't actually break that out in your chart of accounts, so that you could pull that report and look at it yearly at least and go, okay, what is working? So just more things to think about. Same thing. You know what? Another tip with your insurance, if you do break it out, you can turn around and go back to your broker after, your policy or as it's coming up for renewal and say, look, maybe I haven't had any claims for the past couple of years. I'd like a better rate. And, push that, because you guys, you can do that. That's what brokers are there for. Their job is not only just to sell to you, but also to, get you the best product available for the best price. So have that communication with them again, right? There's that relationship and building right back into your living document. So
Exactly. And, and at the end of the day, of course, obviously, run a lot of this too. If you aren't an accountant, run it by your accountant, things like that as you break out. But as we go to it, take advantage, even see what you can run with it on your reporting. Because at the end of the day too, for the most part, I mean, not speaking for all accountants, but, they might not necessarily care how much drywall you spent on the Jones job at the end of the year. So, we're kind of running through in this area. So, good example.
Yeah,
we got a good question coming in. Go for it.
What's the difference between cost of goods and expenses, and why should I separate them? And how do I decide what is cost of goods and what is expenses? That's actually really easy. So your cost of goods, those are what's going to go toward each job. So if you're going to buy material for your job, you're going to associate it to a cost of goods. If you say rent your location, so your building, that's an expense. So that doesn't get to go to a job. You're going to throw that into your expense account. Does that make sense?
I don't know if they can actually say so. Yes, I'm hoping, because that's the breakout. Really, it really comes down to that. It's true, because it's the cost of goods sold. Whatever were ultimately your service that you were providing, what went into that, direct or indirect,
if you didn't have the work,
cost.
That's right. If you didn't have the work, you wouldn't have the cost. That's a great way of looking at it.
Exactly. So we answered that live. All right. There we go. Expenses incurred.
Perfect.
There we are. So exactly. So we got those. Perfect. Exactly. So that's what we're kind of looking at, because it does help to break that out, obviously, as we're going in, because we do want to report on this. We want to take a look at how this is, and this is for our benefit in many ways. So, and also if we're thinking about it, and now to kind of, if we can potentially highlight a particular software, and there's probably other options in other accounting softwares as well. But for example, with QuickBooks, we talk about what we know, especially, item lists. When we're identifying this, if you guys have set up and you've done all the hard work identifying your chart of accounts and stuff, this builds right into utilizing item lists. Take advantage of it. That helps not only to simplify, but it also standardizes. So if other people are working in your system and learning QuickBooks as well, you can help to standardize those types of items as we're putting them in either our job costing or whatever, and it's going to go in the right account as you said it. So take advantage of those. So speaking of, as we go along as well, much appreciated. So learn from the best here. So now Dash account. Of course, we got to talk about it, right? Next year, if you guys do utilize Dash, and especially you've probably talked to me even at some point at times too, being your Dash account guy, if we've ever set it up. Think about from a perspective, whether it is Dash and Dash Account or another job management software that you use. Some folks on this call may not even be using Dash. If you are, hi, we're with Dash. You know, here's the trick. You can play with how this ultimately comes out in Dash as well. So your chart of accounts, when we talk chart of accounts too, and I say this on the webinar too, I teach that webinar, is ultimately, especially when we're talking Dash and we're talking what does my chart of accounts have to play with it, it's our expenses. It's our job costs here. So whether it's an expense or cost of goods sold type account, as we're going through it, Dash Account is actually going to look at particular buzzwords, keywords in that ledger name, and it is going to drop it into the correct category. So that way, if you guys want to break out your expenses and your job costs and be able to kind of report, see through that in Dash and kind of break it out by category, well, ta-da, just look at this little list right here. What I often will do is sit there and, you know, run through pull up my chart of accounts list, as well as this page. By the way, this page right here, this little chart of all our buzzwords that we're looking at is on the Dash Account manual.
Yes.
So that is ultimately our goal, is take a look at that, pull up on the manual and review it as well. And we do have
another question.
We have another question. Go for it, Ms. Dianna.
So do you log your cost of goods in Fusion, Dash, or in Fusion or Dash or QuickBooks? You're going to do it in QuickBooks. As long as your QuickBooks is connected to Dash, or in your case, it sounds like it's Fusion, then it should transfer over. So if you have any issues with that, just get with your franchise business coach and he'll be able to help you out.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can even reach out to us again too if you've taken our information.
That's perfect. So awesome. So now, when will costs be expensed directly to a specific work order in Dash? If you're talking about the feature for like an actual cost that's related to that work order and seeing the actual cost on the work order section, I don't know if I can speak to any like full future plans, but there ultimately, I believe, has been some plans for that to relay in the future. But the main goal is right now, it's mainly in the job costing section, but we've got a report in the Dash accounting details section called accounting report with POs that you can break down to actually do that comparison if you ever needed to. So that's technically already there to a certain degree, just not in the work order section.
And where will that show in Dash? So when you're in the accounting quadrant, that's where your accounting information is going to pull into. So when you actually go into there, you can kind of jump into different areas and follow where that information is. It's really, really simple, but we can show you that too. Well, if we've got a little bit of time at the end, we'll see if we can actually pull one up and kind of give you an idea, a view of what it looks like. But I know every time John and I have practiced this, we've been a lot longer than an hour and a half. So we're trying to stick into that hour and 30 minutes. So
absolutely. So so that is ultimately, and you know, as we go through here, be thinking again, kind of bringing it back to that thought of, as we're building out our chart of accounts, be thinking ultimately how that plays into any sort of extra other reporting areas, kind of like Dash as we go through. So let's go on ahead, and we're going to get into the documentation area. So preparing documentation and procedures. Let's get rolling into here. So you know, when you think about policies like this, what are your thoughts, Dianna?
I like documents. I'm sorry. I love having policies and procedures. I spent a lot of time putting those in place with our business. And I think the reason behind it is mainly because I knew well, everybody in our business knew what to expect, right? So you put these in place so that you don't have situations in the future. So identifying, you know, have you figured out what your AP and AR timelines are, right? So that's your accounts payable and your accounts receivable. You know, do you have set times that if they don't actually get payments within a certain time frame, what does that look like? Are you going to put in stop work orders? And let's be real, like if you are going to create a policy, then you need to make sure that you actually follow through with it, because if you don't, it means nothing. So if you have a stop work order, because say you are taking draws on a job, a very large job, and you haven't received your money, then you need to literally stop. As much as that sounds terrible, you do. You have to think about your business and how you're going to grow your business. And if it means you have to continue to, like if you end up continuing to do that work, and you don't get paid in the end, you are going to be out a whole lot more money than if you just stopped until you received payment. So just think about that. I know it's a hard thing. None of us like doing it because we don't like to be the bad guys, but it's important. And then make sure that you actually have that in writing in advance too, right? So if you know that, hey, if you haven't paid me within a certain time frame, then this is what's going to happen. And I've put it in writing and I've presented it to you, whether you've signed it or how you want to use it. You need to make sure that you've got that in writing, because it's really key to make sure that you can follow up with it. And then obviously lien rights, right? If you, again, haven't received your payment, you need to track what those lien rights are. But the most important thing in regards to that, don't wait to the last minute to put something in place. If you know that you need to lien a property, what does that look like? Have you done the research? Do you know what that time frame is? How long does it take to put that paperwork in place? So think about that well in advance to actually having to implement it. Because if you say it takes you 5 days to complete all the paperwork and jump through all the hoops and process it, you can't do it on day 30 if day 30 is the day that you were saying, absolutely, we're putting the lien in place. So again, think about that. Make sure you've got it figured out in advance, and then move forward with it.
Exactly. Don't let that smack you up from behind there. And
we've all done it.
It's true.
Right?
It's
true. You feel bad. You feel bad about a company or about a person if they're having bad situation, and you want to make sure that you don't have a bad taste in their mouth because you haven't been able to help them. But you know what? You have to do what is best for your business. This is not personal. This is business. So that's how you have to think about it. I'm not going to talk about that anymore because I could go on for a while about that.
Exactly. Actually, though, we have a good question coming in about for full service companies. Is it a regular practice to stop repairs if WaterMed is not paid within a reasonable time period?
No, unfortunately, you do have to finish it. You know what? That emergencies are a little bit different. You do want to, be in those good books. You do need to complete it. Mainly when those stop work orders are going to come into place, that's when you're doing your repairs. You really need to make sure, because that's where in my mind, like at least with our business, I mean, we made some pretty decent money with our water side, but at the same time, repairs are expensive. You, at least with your WaterMed, you have already purchased your equipment, and it might be a little bit of labor time. But when it comes to, repairs, you are now going out and actually purchasing things. That's where those cost of goods come into play. You're buying the material to be able to complete this work. So if they're not going to pay in a timely fashion, you've got to stop at some point and just have that conversation with them at the very least and say, look, I have to run my business, so I really need you to pay up, right? There's that pay up or die funny that we talked about earlier. Well, John, you and I have talked about this a couple of times. I love that. And I know it's not reasonable. We can't actually do that, but I still think it's funny. So
exactly. For those who can't read it, the cartoon itself was actually saying the word invoice is too soft and friendly. We need a new word that means pay up or die. So, but yes, so clarification. Okay, we got a clarification on that one. If mitigation is finished and paid by insurance and reconstruction is halfway through the repairs, would it be common to hold until mid is paid? So thought is probably that
I think that's a conversation you have.
Yeah. Okay.
I think you need to feel that out to determine the company that you're working for, whether it's an insurance company or an adjuster at the time. And unfortunately, as much as I wish that there was, set in stone rules, there isn't. So having that communication and really making sure that you're comfortable that payments are going to come in that case, I get it.
Exactly.
But you could always not finish, right? You can not finish and say, I'm going to hold this until you pay up on that WaterMed side. It's
exactly. So, and it sounds like in this kind of the same concept, we got another one talking about, seeing some contractors recently who go back and take back their materials after the build if it's not been paid for. Is that a common practice? And I've seen the videos on YouTube as well, for stuff that I've known back in the day. It wasn't common practice with my folks or anything that we've seen.
It wasn't for
how
us
about
either.
You too? No, I think it's kind of like it's seen, but I don't know if it is common practice, not from what we've seen with our folks. And sometimes if you wanted to do that, it's judge your relationship with your community too.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would do that.
I'd rather just stop it unless your materials are staged there. But at that point, I'd rather just, stage my materials elsewhere sometimes if I needed to. So that's not a big deal. But so perfect. So and exactly. One key thing again, because like I'm a peacemaker. I like everyone to like me. Let's keep it in writing. Let's get this stuff, like she said, like Diana said, keep it in writing too. Like that's one big takeaway that I love with that one, because we can have this and this is awesome. But if I can tell the homeowner, you know what, here's your signature that agreed to exactly what we're just doing right now. I'm sorry, don't blame me, blame the document that we all agreed to coming out to this. So.
And you've been clear from the very beginning, right? You have been transparent. It's not like you're all of a sudden changing the rules.
Exactly.
So you just have to stand by it and be honest with them, right? That's all people really want.
That's exactly. So now thinking about timelines, thinking about AR especially, get paid or die, right? Or pay up or die, right? So we've got a ability again. So Mad Dash to 2022, get paid. So we have we've set you guys up for, with this, if you guys have, so in Dash, let's say this, if you have been utilizing Dash, if you guys are tracking along with us and you're like, yes, we got this, we got the integration, we've been tracking this kind of stuff, we have been doing our costs, we have been doing our invoices and payments, awesome, you got some data, well, let's do something with it, because maybe we've been tracking it, but maybe we haven't been following up as much on some of our receivables. So if anything, or quite frankly, at least documenting it in where we need to be. So if you guys do have Dash and you have been utilizing this, most especially, or to give you a picture of the future, if you want to use it, we have an advanced reporting tool called the BI reporting tool here. And so this is super cool. Diana and I have been nerding out over this one. I mean, I took a course in college on making graphs. No kidding. And so I judge the stuff out of graphs too, oftentimes because of that class. So sorry, graph snob. We have the ability to ultimately visualize that data, and we built out just a nice, simple, easy, color-coded, if that as well, report for tracking your receivables. Our aged receivables here. And, if you have BI, we can actually put that into your database. I believe that was part of the goal here for those who have been along with us. We could place that into your database too, so you too can have, this fancy dancy report here in the BI reporting tool, so that you guys can really start to keep track of your receivables this way.
And it'll also give you your lien rights expiration date, right? Which is, again, like we talked about, it is important to know where that's sitting at. So at least you can pull a report that captures all the information you need at once. Exactly. And it is kind of fun, right? Like you see where the job number is, those are all hyperlinks. So it's nice to be able to have a report where you can click on it and take you right to your job. You can read up on your notes and everything. It really is kind of fun. And I love the colors.
That's it. Exactly. So whole lot of fun. We do have that option for those of you who are interested in BI. If you like this, if you're like us and you see that and you see, ooh, I want to play with this.
The value behind what it could do for you.
Exactly. We will have a spot at the end where you can actually let us know, hey, actually I am, raise your hand for that. So the other thing to note is we will be showing you another section if BI is not necessarily for you, another spot to start, if anything, and maybe get into the BI eventually to start tracking some of that. We got a spot coming up in a second. So let's get to the other fun part, the other nerdy bit that we love, going over here. Documents. Take it away.
Subcontractors. This is a lot of the information that we want to capture, at least what we want to get back to you guys about. So, when you are onboarding new subcontractors, what does that look like? You need to have a payment schedule in place. Do you offer a quick pay discount? Some companies do, some don't. Also, if you're using your work orders and purchase orders, are you using those for your subs? And just a quick tip, purchase orders are not just about providing your people or your subcontractors with, a list of items to go and purchase at the store. They're also for your subcontractors to lock in their product, like whatever it is that they're going to provide to you with an agreed price and their scope, which they can sign and provide back to you, right? So there's your contract for that particular job. As well as communication. So I'm going to kind of jump off a little bit about another area within Dash that's also another add-on, and that's Pro Assist. And I don't know who has Pro Assist on the call or not, and you don't have to have it, but it is an idea. But ProAssist isn't just about communicating with your homeowner. It also can be used for your subcontractors. So in our territory, I mean, it could take us anywhere from 6 to 7 hours to get from one point to another. It just was a very large area. We were in the middle of the mountains, and you can't just go over a mountain, you have to go around it. Sometimes it's easier if you know your subcontractors in site, and let's say they've completed whatever it is that they're doing, they can now take photos and upload it through ProAssist. So you actually can see live what's happening on that job, where it's sitting at. They can upload notes as well. Like, it's really a valuable tool, not just, I mean, overall it is a communication tool, but it's not just for your homeowners. It can be used in other ways. So I'm done with that part, but more information, if you want to know a little bit more about ProAssist as well at the end, just let us know. We do have another poll that we're going to do, but that one's going to be private. So you can put your information in and just let us know if there's some areas that we've talked about that you're interested in, and we can get the right people with you. But the other thing too, subcontractors, back to that, we did create a subcontractor package, and that package had a vendor information sheet. So it would be for us to collect information as well, like from the subcontractor. And you do want to do this regularly to make sure that you're updated, because the last thing you want to do is not have, say, email addresses and you can't contact them after the fact. But direct deposit information. So we paid directly every 15 days. So they had to provide us with their banking information. And don't freak out about that. That's not a bad thing. If someone's giving you their banking information, the only thing you can do is give them money. So I will freely give anybody my banking information if that means you're going to put money in my bank account. But we're actually going to jump into Dash. So John, if you can jump over into Dash, and
I shall cue it up.
We're going to have a look. Yeah, I think I have control now. We're going to have a look at a subcontractor. So just before this, I actually created HDFI Construction and built this in for our subcontractor company. So just so you guys know, obviously you can go in and do a search, type in your HDFI and click the little funnel and choose contains. So then I'm going to go directly into HDFI, and this is where I would collect this information. Now, I did not fill this out. So if you're looking at this right now and you can see a really nice big empty screen because there's information missing, I apologize. I just wanted to make this quick and simple for you. But this information is important, so make sure you're capturing this when you are doing your sub agreements. Also, add in your company contacts. Now, I put myself in here because I needed a contact. But the document section, this is the part I want to show you. And I know you guys are thinking, oh, we're accountants, or we're doing the bookkeeping and whatnot. Why do we have to know about documents? Because if you don't have the right documentation for your subcontractors, then you really shouldn't be paying them, right? I mean, and that's not to say don't go and pay people, but if you have an agreement with them and that agreement says you need to have XYZ documents and you don't have updated documents, you need to get that. So here's how you're going to house it. And then we're going to show you where you can actually go and pull a report to actually see where you're sitting at with those documents, because you want to make sure that you're giving plenty of time when you go back to your subcontractors and make that request. So initially, when you look in here, you can see a couple of documents. I've uploaded a master sub agreement and just auto insurance, right? But I also say we probably need workers' comp. So that should be something that I should be reaching out to them about. When you get a new document, you can actually move this information. Do not delete it. And here's the reason for that. If you have their CGL policy and it's for, let's say it was for 2020 and they did some work at a house and everything was fine, but in 2021 something happened, whatever it is, they're obviously, I don't know about you guys, but we've had it where people will come back to us. You need to make sure, and there are 3 other parts that I'm going to talk about here too, that you have their insurance. And one important part is making sure that you're actually listed as an additional insured on your subcontractor's policy. It doesn't cost anything, but it's really valuable. So if something did happen, it would actually fall under their policy as opposed to yours. But double check that with your broker because everyone's different. This is just how it was when we were running our business, and I knew how the rules work. So, and in the US, it is a little bit different than Canada. So again, have that conversation with your broker, but make sure that yes, you add yourself. So additional insured, write this down. You need to know this when you're having that conversation with your broker. The other thing, 30 days notice of cancellation. So you want to ensure that if you have brought on a new subcontractor who maybe didn't have insurance in the past, but went to get it so that they could work for you, they list you as an additional, or that they, sorry, we've already said that part. They have the 30 days notice of cancellation on that document as well. That just means that if they go and buy that insurance and they provide you with your certificate of insurance, that they can't go back a week later and say, hey, I don't need this insurance anymore, cancel it. Now they have to keep it for 30 days because now the insurance company is going to notify whoever they've listed and let them know, hey, this guy is going to cancel his insurance and this is the date it's going to happen. So now you've been kept in the loop, right? Really, really important, as well as making sure you have minimum liability rules put in place. So in Canada, you can have $1 million liability, you can have $2 million liability, you can have $5 million liability. I strongly suggest you go with the highest amount that you can get. And I'm not selling you insurance because I don't know the rules, but the higher insurance that you have, the better coverage you have. And I know nowadays you can pretty much sue for anything. So making sure that you're covered and you have that information is super important. So the 3 things we talked about: making sure you're listed as an additional insured, making sure you are also notified of cancellation, so 30 days notice of cancellation, and that you have your minimum liability insurance, and set it as high as you can get it, because it's really, honestly, when you jump from 2 million to 5 million, it might be a couple $100. It's well worth it. So do that. Keep that information. If you need more info on it later, you can certainly reach out, or like I said, talk to your broker, because they're going to give you more clear info based on the company that you're with. But with that being said, don't delete it. Don't delete it because you might need it later. So move it to one of these other folders that are here. You can also upload from this point and view it as well. But the big thing here is expiration date. So I see there's 2 other documents that are in here that are expired. So really make sure that you're on top of this and they don't get lost in the shuffle. So that's where we're going to jump into. And I may have jumped ahead a little bit here, but we're going to talk a little bit about our document management report. John, you want to take that part over?
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And then we'll actually, I did forget about notes. We can go back and talk about notes when we're done this part.
Notes, and let's make an extra document too. While we're at it, we show them, right? You know,
we can certainly do that too.
We don't have that special Canadian document in here. Right? So what we got, as you guys see, I went in. So from the contact manager in here, here's the trick. You know, we looked at those documents. We're building them up, right? Let's pull that kind of stuff. Let's grab our W-9s. Let's get our contacts in there in their documents spot, you know, so that way we have one place for our, what we need to keep things straight and flying right. Well, here in the document management report, you can get a 30,000 foot view for all your contacts. What's expired, what's missing. It will show you that. So it actually searches through all the contacts. We can always, of course, filter by company type. So if you're really kind of just focusing on subs, right, we can filter by that if we wanted to. Same way we filtered by searching for that customer or that company here. And then you can see also, all of your status. Go ahead.
Yeah, and you can also search by date, right? So if you know, okay, what are we sitting at? We're October, maybe January. We kind of want to be on top of things. You can actually pull a report for that time frame and say, who's going to come up, what's going to come up for deadlines at that point. So a great way to use this tool, and definitely use it. It is very important.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Keep your ducks in a row. Make sure we have that documentation as we need, where we need it. And quite frankly, feel free to favorite this page too. Yep, so on Dash, you can actually favorite this page. That's that little star. You can give it a name, a description, and an icon if you want, and that shows up, boom, on your homepage, one click. So, and yes, exactly. So Diana made a good point there. You know, if you get there, if you go to it, make that a regular habit to check and be sure and be proactive. Set a calendar reminder to check the document management report and follow up on documents for such and such a time frame if you have to. You know, that just helps you maintain that regular dynamic of tracking what you'll need. I mean, we really do need to keep that in mind. Now, but speaking of, we got our document. You wanted to especially address our notes. Notes are a big thing, all of that fun. So we're back in HCFI, but tell me, what do I do if I see here, like, you know, I'm in Canada here, and I need my documents here. Let's actually refresh this page and let's get it to, as I've had this one sitting for a minute here. Now, if I pop into my documents, ultimately when it comes through, you know, how do I add an extra page? Show us how we can do that. How do we add an extra document, you know?
All right. Well, you can either choose just to click on administration or drop down to default documentation standard. And I think you're frozen. No, there we go.
Yeah, I was kind of feeling frozen myself.
I know.
There we go.
All right. So where the company contact documentation center is here, you can actually select your company type. So we're going to go down to subcontractor company, and it's going to show you all the documents that are already in here. Now, if I want to add something else, you're going to go just below it and type in whatever you may need. Let's say we're going to do a vendor info sheet. I personally believe that this should be done at least yearly because, like I said, you do want to make sure you've got contact information. So I would click on here for an expiration date. And whether you do this every year in January or you do it based on the time frame you've had it filled out, it's completely up to you. Then you're going to hit add new document. Once that's completed, it's going to add it into your contacts. Let's just go and find HDFI. There we go. And bear with us here as we work with internet. But now if I go into the document section, you are going to see my vendor info sheet. So this is the information we're talking about. If you have a subcontractor package that you've created and you have particular documents that you want to make sure are in the system, this is how you're going to create it and upload it. But on top of that, let's say HCFI is selling their company because they're retiring. So if they are retiring, but they are actually in the process of trying to sell their business, but haven't done it yet, but they've decided we're not taking on any more work at this point while it's up for sale. You do want to go into this company, and I highly suggest do not remove them, don't delete them, don't deactivate them. Put in DNU. John, what's DNU?
That is the fun little acronym for do not use. So letting everybody know, hey, if I see this, these guys are my go-to. They've been my go-to for years, but maybe not everybody knows they're in the middle of a transition and we can't really hire them at the moment. Let's go ahead and signify that by your fancy do not use.
So, and then because you've done this, it's really important to make sure that you actually go back in and create a note. Put a note in why you did this, right? So DNU happened because the owners are retiring. So they've stopped doing work, but they are in the process of selling. So leave it at that. And then when it does come back where they're good to go, you're going to take that DNU out, and then you're going to come right back into this note section and add another note. The reason for this is so that your accounting department and anyone else that's looking at this understands. Because if you end up like, let's say there's an invoice that they're trying to clean everything up, and there's an invoice that's like, 4 months old that they've submitted, and you come in as the accountant and you're looking at this and going, well, it says DNU, why do we have work for them? You need to understand the background. So make sure that you're updating the notes here as well. It's not just for jobs, right? We want to be able to take this and utilize your contacts and add your information in so that you know what's happening with them.
Exactly. So super helpful, but as you guys see, we do recommend it. It does kind of come full circle. Even if you are doing main bookkeeping, you also can act as that gatekeeper to make sure we keep things straight and flying right with the folks that we hire, because of course you're the one kind of writing the check, right? So especially if you're doing that, like if you're signing off on that, let's make sure we're actually all simpatico here and signing off on the folks that we really need to actually be paying at this point.
That's right.
To make it official. So because you're also the one in charge of reporting too at the end many times. So we've got a notification can send out automated notifications when something is going to expire for a subcontractor. In this kind of case, I do not believe we currently have a feature to that, but however, you could always set up some sort of calendar notification. You go through, pull that report, export it, set up a calendar notification, and that ultimately will stay on your radar that way.
Yeah, and if you save it to your home page as maybe it's something that you pull monthly, you can actually identify it in your favorites like that so that you know that you need to do this every month, right? It becomes automatic. It's kind of the same thing when you go in and create a job. You don't think about what you're doing, you just make it happen because you've done it for so long.
Exactly.
And then
exactly.
you know what? I do see the note here saying, how do you assign a sub as DNU? So you're going to change the name. So once you've done this, you actually have to hit save. And we're just not going to save it because we still want to keep this active in the system. But that's what you would do. You would just change the name to put, and we always put DNU in the front, because that way, if you are searching for a particular company, you can actually do a search by DNU, and you can pull up the whole list of companies that you've got listed that way. You never want to remove something, because you always want to keep that information should you need it in the future. And whether it's a company, like it could be a company that just, you know what, they're just terrible. They don't follow the rules that we abide by. So you still want to make sure that they're in that system, because if you bring on somebody new and they go, oh, hey, here's a great company, we want to use these, there's a note in there for a reason. So just to keep that information in the back of your mind.
That's it. And if they're simply inactive, then that's going to be completely out of sight, out of mind for some of those folks too, if they're looking at that. So absolutely. So
you want to be able to see that, to register it.
That's it. That's it. So keep all those kind of things in mind, because again, you're the gatekeeper. You can act like that. So that's our management here. So if you guys were interested in that, we actually did set up, if you want a screenshot, again, screenshotters, if you do want to take a capture of this screen here, feel free. We've got the ability for you guys to, we just did a quick little walkthrough step for adding things like adding document types, or you know, so on and so forth. So couple more seconds.
And you can always ask us at the end too. I mean, reach out to us. You've got our email addresses. If you have a question about it, just shoot us an email.
That's it. That's it. Exactly. So now let's go rolling on cast that vision here for our good data. We've seen a lot of stuff. We've seen a lot of what we can do with what we're taking in if we take it in properly. So what are some other things we can look at here? What are our goals when we want to say good data? Diana, what comes to mind when you're really thinking that?
Assets. This is your best asset. You need to make sure that you have your information up to date and accurate, because you want to be able to come back and look at things like, let's say, for instance, you've got a job that you did 6 months ago that you don't have all your information in there, and then you get a call back on it and you go to look at it and think, oh my goodness, what happened on this job? I don't know about you, but I can't remember what I had for breakfast, let alone a job that was 6 months ago. So this is why it's so important. Make sure you have that documentation in there, whether it's even simple things like your claim number and policy number, adjuster contact information, right down to any notes that anything that's valuable, right? I mean, if somebody called, I used to do it where if I happened to be answering that phone that day and I had a message that came in, I wouldn't actually write it down on a piece of paper. I would go right into my notes and quickly shoot off a note to whoever that person it applied to. I found that was the easiest way to eliminate paper, but to get my information to who it needed to go to at that time. So just make sure you document everything. You could not document enough, to be honest.
Exactly. So, and then we had another question about adding a W-9 to the document. Says it already exists. I would, in a case like that, it's kind of hard right up front from chat to see what happened. We've got actually good time to plug our support folks. We have ultimately folks that I would recommend live chat for them, getting them to get in there and remote in and take a look. It could just be that where it's selected hidden, and such. Exactly. So there are a few different ways to see it. So, and if anything, they can get that all set up, because yes, W-9 is pretty standard. We usually set that in anyway for you. So
yeah, so it might just be in the background and you just need to have somebody kind of go in and tweak it.
Exactly. So, but I would definitely contact that. They're perfect for that exact same situation. So now we talked about our whole deal with the contact manager, things to look out for there. Ultimately, as you're taking it in, also guys, just take a look as you're taking in your jobs. Keep in mind for folks to really pay attention to taking in claim numbers, policy numbers, things like that, adjuster info. We can always touch upon that on another topic, another time. For sure. There are also other webinars that will cover part of that as well for that job intake, but we also want to show you another tool, again, in Dash here, to help you guys with essentially kind of a dashboard. Well, it is a dashboard.
Yep.
So
your job dashboard.
Exactly. It's your job dashboard. Hover over dashboards. It is your job dashboard. And may we submit to you that even if, let's say, QuickBooks is your daily driver for your programs, I still highly recommend, both of us do, that you use this on a regular basis. Again, if you
or whatever
database.
database. Yeah, whatever your database is, you need to make sure that you are verifying it, because despite the fact that you are accounting, and yes, you work in QuickBooks or whatever your accounting program is, you still need to go back and look at your other database that houses everything and just make sure everything is kosher. So
that's right, exactly. So if you're using, this is Dash, we're modeling Dash, but if you have another database that helps to kind of break down jobs by status or anything like that, or if you like what you see, hi, we're Dash. But at the end of the day, either way, if you got something that breaks out your jobs by status, that's really what we're looking for. So in our thought here, that's what this job dashboard does. And it is all date driven. I get my job, that gives it its freebie and bingo is the date received, then it puts it into pending sales. As soon as I get a date marked of either my estimate approved or my work auth approved, that puts it into pre-production. Job is sold. So when my job's in this status, I'm really going to be looking for, especially from a finance end, peruse the jobs within. All you got to do is click the bucket, peruse the jobs in here and see, well, have we collected all the deductibles needed to start work on some of these jobs? Take a look at that. Go in through here, manage that, write notes to whomever you need to knock on some doors, whatever you got to do. But this is a great one to visit on a regular basis to track up and see, are we ready to pull the trigger and get this job going? And now that, of course, is when we have started, marked work started, then that puts it in a date work in progress. Begin looking at this one, but the next one that we really want you to focus on from a finance end is completed that paperwork. Because at this point, we have marked data majority completed. In Dash, particularly, that's also when it automatically starts tracking your lien rights. So that expiration there, when you put that in, when you mark that data majority completion, that fires your lien rights. So that's one thing you're going to want to track in that status. But the big thing, again, like I've said, at our old company, people are more willing to pay you if what you did for them is nice and fresh and shiny. So let's start getting your invoice ready. So that's, if it's in this bucket here, start getting things together. What do we need to get this invoice out when it's ready, and what do we need to get it out there too? Are we looking for a COS? Because that's the next thing here. So the invoice pending bucket, particularly in Dash here, is looking for a date of COS. That's when it's fully in invoice pending status. And of course, this is the big one. We're starting to ask ourselves, let's get those out there. Let's get those invoices out. And so that is our main deal. Now, accounts receivable, that ultimately is, hey, what are our timelines looking like? That was the other spot in Dash that I was telling you about, that, if you're trying to grow into BI, or, if you wanted something in addition to BI, this bucket right here is a great one to look at, because what are we actively collecting? Here's our data right here. And then also finally, waiting for final closure. Again, finance, you are the gatekeeper. May we submit to you that you got a big part in this one, because especially if you're utilizing the accounting integration, talk to me if you don't have it yet, then we need to get you all set that way. So that way you can confirm that what is here in, let's say Dash, for example, like here, matches what is dollar for dollar in your QuickBooks. So that way you are where you need to be, and you can trust your reports 6 months from now. That's the biggest thing. So now, can we select them by referred by? You got a thought on that here, Miss Dianna? Because technically, not really.
What? No. And
I've been a lot talking though, so I figured I'd let you get that.
No. I like it when you talk sometimes, because then it gives me a chance. Because I was actually trying to go through here and seeing another way that I could suggest to be doing that. But yeah, if you actually have BI, that is something you could alter a bit and add. Yeah. I'm telling you, this BI reporting tool can do so much more than you can actually imagine. And I'm still learning it myself. And I think, John, I think you're kind of in the same boat.
Oh, yeah.
But it is super informative, and to be able to pull and capture information that sort of the standard reporting that you can do in Dash that it can do now it's incredible. I just can't say enough about it. But I would suggest that you do look into that if that's something that maybe would be beneficial for your business.
Exactly. So good thought, because yes, exactly. That was perfect, Dianna. That was it. While you can filter this by responsible employees,
that was another thing I was going to say.
Like, exactly. While you can filter it by these, Something like referred by, that would be something like a custom report, and especially something like BI. You could do that, but
I mean, you can pull the referred by report in the marketing section, but I mean, ideally, I'd either build my own report in the report section, or I would just get BI and come up with another way to, because there is so much information you could calculate more than just referred by. So
exactly. So good question there too. So exactly. So you can use a combination of this, but either way, we got you thinking. You're already thinking about what can I utilize with the material that I'm coming in? How can I visualize my jobs within their status, especially from their accounting life cycle, in order to take advantage of this and get on the same page as a company and move forward. This is kind of our goal here. So now you want to introduce everybody if they're really liking what they see here and tracking.
Some of the information that we've covered, absolutely. So again, we're going to take you back to these other webinars that we have, and some of them, again, they have happened, but there are 2 others that I see here that have not. So if you've missed the administrators and coordinators, like I said, you can still get it. You can. We were on this yesterday. It was super informative. So there's lots of information you probably could use from that, as well as the management and PMs and estimators. That's coming up on Thursday and Friday. So really book into these. You still have, I think it is 30 minutes up to the time that it starts to register. So just register. It would be awesome for you guys to attend. We love it when everybody comes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we have that. Not only do we have this, you guys are with us in Pulse, and this is awesome. We got other options. So we got Next Gear University. If you guys are the type that like asynchronous learning, means you don't have to show up at a specific time or place, but just do it on your own pace, we've got Next Gear University where you can actually do some continued education in Dash for those specific sections. So now ultimately, we have that now. Justin, we can definitely get to that question in a little bit here, provided, because it sounds like there's some webinar issues going on as far as registry goes. So we can have someone address that for sure. So just to make sure you're heard there. So we've got our time, our setback, your own asynchronous courses there for Next Gear University that you can set up. Now, we also have role-based weekly webinars. Dianna, what are your thoughts on role-based weekly webinars? You want to kind of introduce these folks? I mean, I'm biased.
Yeah.
You're kind of biased too, but
I kind of am too. After we sold our business, we sold our business in 2019 and we're now in 2021. So I was actually able to take some time off, and I like to think that I retired. But I'm now obviously back at work. But when I came back, there were some changes, right? I mean, Next Gear was kind enough to bring me on board, which I love. And I went through and did every single one of these webinars. I learned so much information from these because they're constantly evolving and updating the program. So I suggest, and take it for granted, but I do highly suggest that you take these at least once a year. I think that there's a lot of valuable information that you will take from it. And it is so much information that you're not going to get everything all at once. But if you set yourself and say, you know what, I am going to redo my coordinator and admin training every year in January, do it, because you will find information that's important. I don't know about you, but there were times where I would open up my Dash in the morning to get going, and I'm in a rush, right? I'm like, oh, the phones are already ringing. I need to get some information going. And I pop in there, and all of a sudden I end up with a nice box that's giving me the information on the updates that they've done. I will be honest, I closed it. I didn't have time because I was in a rush, right?
I'm offended.
Big mistake. I'm sorry. It's the biggest. It was dumb. Really, it was dumb. It's important. And I know that you don't always have time because restoration is go, go, go. But it is important to try and take that time to read it. But if you don't, come to these, weekly webinars, because these are important. You're going to learn that information in these. They're all live. So do this.
Exactly. And remember, these that we're talking about, these are free to you. If you are a subscriber to Dash, this is free. This is cheap as free for the price of free 99. You guys don't have to pay a thing. So and take that as it may too, honestly. But hey, coming from somebody who teaches this one. So if you hear me on the QuickBooks one, but hey,
I'm going to stop you for 1 second before you get into that. We do have one more question here. And can Dash send out automated notifications when something is going to expire for a subcontractor? It can't. It can't, unfortunately. Now we may have answered this already. I can't tell on my list, but
we
no,
did, yes.
Did we? Darn it.
Mm-hmm.
I thought
That's
I
all
was
right.
being proactive.
That's all right. We got doubly because the other one below it was answered. So hey, we got you, Kyle.
That's why.
Kyle, you were blessed with a double answer there. So
He just got extra
now
attention.
that's right. So now what we have ultimately though is we also have certification courses. They are a little more ultimately consultative in manner. So you guys, again, for free, you guys will have to first take Next Gear Fundamentals. And then ultimately, once you get that certification, it's easy. You can get through it and you'll learn a lot more. Here's the deal though. Once you do, kind of off menu, you have the ability to take these extra additional consultative courses like Show Me the Money and Money Matters. I mean, I know you've taken them or have been taking them.
They are super informative. Take them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, oh, awesome question. And actually we're going to get to, because we've got our certification courses we highly recommend. We're going to jump into, and actually we'll kind of mix it a little bit to make it a little easier. We've got a poll for you guys at the end. This is because we're starting to really land this plane. We've got a confidential survey that you guys can start to fill out for us, please, through Slido as we go along. But let's also mix this. That way everyone has time to answer this survey, because this is also for those who wanted BI, want that information. You can put that in. It's not, your information is not going to be posted on the screen here, so feel free to take it out. We got a question. Let's also do question and answer at this stage, so everyone has time to submit their questions and such, and their surveys.
Great idea.
So I just thought of that. You're not going to hit me. So we've got
happens every once in a while.
It's rare, but it does happen. So now, you have any recommendations for an accounting process to ensure jobs are invoiced in a timely fashion and no money is forgotten? Diana, take it away for you.
So, this is actually really, really important. That's where I always talk about notes and making sure that you over document. If you, and a lot of the times, I know in the past, a lot of project managers, all the information is stored in their head, right? They have this conversation with their homeowner and they just sometimes kind of forget to share that with everybody else. So it's going to take time. If the team isn't fully doing that, you really need to start getting them on board and adding those notes into the system. But that's where that job dashboard will really come into effect. Because as long as you are entering your dates and completing your compliance tasks, it's going to move them through the buckets where you need them to go. And I also want you guys to know too, that we are going to be doing other webinars in the future. And those webinars, we will touch on some different areas. And one feature within the program is called Ready to Invoice. I'm not going to get into detail about that because, like I said, we want to be able to take that and explain it a whole lot more in another webinar. But it's a great little feature in your accounting quadrant. And you can actually, when an invoice is ready and the project manager knows that you're at that point, they're going to send that note. And then you can follow it under your dashboard and accounts receivable tracking. So there is a way that you can follow that, and it's super easy and really good to put that practice into place. But yeah, that will help you. But you have to manage, obviously, your job dashboard and make sure that the jobs are moving through those buckets, as well as you can identify it through that accounts receivable tracking under your dashboards.
Exactly. And actually one thing that came to mind too while you were talking about that, especially when talking about project managers, estimators, so on and so forth, making sure that they have practices in place to keep the estimate, because in Dash, again, if we're talking Dash, the estimates are out there in front. Keep that updated, keep your revisions updated. That way you know what you're billing and what's left. I remember actually, did you talk about one time you actually went to bill and realized when you found in a note, there was an extra spot. Amount. Yes. Yeah. So notes, all that,
there was
and,
a conversation.
And it didn't match with what was estimated.
No, it was actually, I think it was an email where they were going back and forth, and I just happened to be going through it because I had a process when it came to closing jobs. And I mean, the job would get closed obviously after full payment has been received. So I would do a file audit and go through. And that's when I discovered that, there was like another $250, which thankfully was coming from the homeowner. So I didn't have to go back to the insurance company. And then I just reached out to them and there was no issues because they were aware of it and were waiting for me to send that note. But that's where you really have to stay on top of that, right? Making sure if you do have notes in the system that you are communicating with your accounting department about that.
Again, why Dash? Even again, if you have some folks that are just like, hey, I'm only in QuickBooks, awesome. Be sure to check Dash too. If we're doing this, let's talk about it. Let's keep it in the open and make that communication one centralized area, because exactly like in her situation, you caught it at the right time. So perfect. So looks like we got some good survey results, just leaving that up here, but we're starting to wind down. We're winding down to the end of our session. So any other questions, feel free, guys. We are here for you. And again,
and I think, I don't know about you, but I'm pretty excited that we've gone through this whole list. And I feel like I hope that we've provided you guys with some really important information and at least stuff to think about, right? Take back to your organization and go, okay, how can we do our Mad Dash to 2022?
Exactly.
Right? What does that look like?
That's it. I think so too. So hopefully you guys are in a good position.
Thank you.
You've got some, conversation starters here. So thank you guys so much for all of your time. And we just appreciate it. Again, we're here for you. So contact us, contact our support team to get us, however you want to do it. If you didn't get down our contact info, we forgot to add our contact info at a slide
at the end.
So
because we were too busy trying to make sure we didn't forget anything important.
That's it. So hey, y'all have
fun. We're not really important.
It's been a pleasure, guys, and it really has. So enjoy.
Thank you, everyone.